Welcome to Jesus On, a look at today's issues from an eternal perspective. Pastor Zack and Pastor John will be giving us biblical insight into some of the problems the world faces today. Sit back and listen as we hear Jesus On, the problems you're dealing with right now.
Hey, welcome to the Jesus On podcast. My name is Zack and this is
Melissa.
Melissa is my bride. And we are doing a special focus around Jesus on some family-related, marriage-related topics. And so I thought Melissa could join me on this. And today we want to talk about Jesus on families serving together. Now, here's the reason why I think it's so important for us to talk about this is I've mentioned a time or two in this podcast as we focus on family that 75% of kids who grow up in the church will leave the church between the ages of 19 and 29. Mm-hmm. 3/4 of kids. The 25% that stayed, there were 5 different habits or practices that they grew up with or that they had that kept them in the church even after they grew up. And one of those practices is what we're talking about today, is these kids served in their church. Mm-hmm. They served. And so today we want to talk about kids serving in the church or families serving in the church. And so what does Jesus have to say about this?
Yeah, well, I think it's easier for adults to get connected into church and to serve. And I feel like that's something that's very, it's preached, it's almost expected, but not very often is it talked about children and children serving. And so we find in John chapter 6 in verse 9 where the boy brought what he had. He had his fish and his loaves of bread, and Jesus used that, multiplied that to feed thousands.
I know. And imagine what this boy must have felt like when Jesus took his food and multiplied it. And this boy is watching this miracle unfold. And this boy is playing a key role in what is maybe the most famous miracle that Jesus does. And here's what I think kids serving specifically in their church, here's what I think it does. It helps them own their own faith, experience their own faith. There is this moment that every child goes through where their parents' faith becomes their faith. Or going back to that statistic where so many of these kids who grow up in the church walk away from the church. Here's what I found when I worked in youth ministry is the ones that walked away from their faith, more often than not, the reason why they walked away is it was never their faith in the first place. It was mom's faith, it was dad's faith. And when kids can serve, it's a tangible opportunity for them to go, no, this is my faith. This is my God. This is who I believe in. So it's so important. Why don't you talk a little bit about what does this look like for us and our kids?
Yeah. Well, even apart from serving in the church, we want our kids just to serve the Lord in multiple areas. Yeah. So yes, at church, we ask them to help clean up. Our oldest being 11, he's not old enough to serve in like the nursery or anything like that, but he is able to help clean. So after Sunday service, or all of them really, but we will ask them to help clean up, or at our community groups, helping clean up. It's not just the adults that jump in to do it all. But one main thing for our family is, this is our 3rd year that we have the opportunity to go on a mission trip. So we go down to Mexico. We serve the Lord by building a church, building a house. And I love that our kids have a joy in serving the Lord. Yeah. They love the trip. This year we get to do it twice, and they are so excited to head back down there in just a month or so. And so I love that they have the idea that we do it because we're serving the Lord, and we love the Lord, but it's a joy. It's a joy to serve.
It's fun. Whenever I've shared with people that our family goes on a mission trip to Mexico, the reaction I get every single time without fail is, oh, that's so good for your kids to see what and how different people live differently so that they can come back and be grateful. And I'm offended. I'm like, that's not why I take them. Like, we are not more blessed because we have a nicer house or we have a nicer car than people who are living a far more simplistic life. That's not the definition of blessed. We bring them down there and we go together as a family so that they understand, no, just as Jesus came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many, we too as a family, we serve.
And we've had conversations with them about just enjoying it, how God made us to serve, and we get the joy out of it. It's not a drag. It's not it's not boring, but there's a joy. We were made to serve.
Absolutely. I think one of the ways I've seen this done, not just in our own lives, but in our church. We are part of a church where there's quite a few families who have kids, and seeing kids join their mom and dad on the greeting team. We've got a couple who serve on our worship team, and their kids come, and they come early, and they're just part of it. I have a mentor who's got a couple of kids, and one of the things he told me is, he said, just bring your kids, take your kids to be a part of everything in ministry, and not like as this kind of chore, but as like, hey, this is our faith. This is what it is. See the joy in it. And so I'm not sure we have to make it really difficult and go, okay, I guess I need to go on a mission trip like Zack and Melissa. I think it's, hey, where are you, mom and dads? Where are you serving? And just simply have your kids join you in serving that way. And if you're listening and going, well, I don't really serve in my church. Well, serve in your church. I would encourage you.
And it also could be maybe you have a neighbor who needs something done, and maybe she's elderly and she can't do it herself, but you take your kids along to mow the lawn or do whatever that is. But it's the conversations you have. You're not doing that to serve the lady. You're doing that out of love for Jesus, and Jesus's love for her.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it just is stuck in the walls of the church.
Absolutely.
It needs to leave the church.
I think that's so good. I mean, we felt called by God a number of years ago to become foster parents. Again, it's not a way that we're serving the church. It's a way that we want to serve the community. It's the way we want to serve vulnerable kids. But we've shared with our kids, this is not our ministry, it's our family's ministry. And so we have our daughter who prays every single day that God would provide a new child to join us, to be a part of our family, and we see it as part of serving together. So I love that point of, it doesn't just need to be inside the church. It can be in the community, it can be neighbors. Let's be people who serve. And I think maybe it is a challenge for us adults of, maybe the first question is, are we serving? Are we modeling the way? Serve in a youth ministry, serve in children's ministry, serve where you're gifted, serve where it's needed. Any closing thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think one is that, excuse me, when a parent or an adult does do that. So maybe we have some friends and he goes to Africa at least once a year, and it is a family sacrifice. The wife is home with the kids and running around trying to get all the activities done while the husband's away for the 10 days, and having conversations with them, because they are a part of that. Maybe they are not on the ground in Africa, but that is a family commitment to serve the Lord in that way, to support him. And so just conversations, communicating with your children, opportunities to serve with them.
And one last thing, it just comes to mind, and maybe this is getting way more nuanced than it should, but we need to serve our kids. You know, Jesus has this final scene before he dies on the cross where he's sitting around a table like this with his disciples, and he washes all of their feet, and he says to them, do you see what I just did? I'm doing this as an example that just as I served you, you would serve one another. And so I think this conversation, it's more than just about families that serve together. It's more than just about seeing our kids own their faith by serving in the church and outside of the church. I think the fundamental conversation is Jesus has called us to the joy of serving others. And so may that penetrate our heart, and may I serve you, may I serve and we serve our kids, may we serve our church, may we serve our community, may we serve our families, may we just serve. So how are you serving? How's your family serving?
Yeah, and let us know, and maybe in the comment section some of the things that you've done as a family to give some other ideas that we haven't covered.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining us for this episode of Jesus On. I hope and I pray that it blesses you.